The Balenciaga Bondage bears. You may be aware of this particular story because it has become a little bit, it's become quite big. Before I get into it, I think it's relevant to promote some of the stuff that we've got on the website, some of the excellent premium content, including this excellent debate that Josh and Connor had on the psychology and morality of pornography, where you were advocating for the ban all porn position.
I would like a legislative airstrike in Minecraft against the porn industry.
And Josh's position, if I'm representing this correctly, was not necessarily defending porn on a moral basis, but more defending the legality of it from the argument of if you ban it, it might go underground and will become worse, and any abuses that are in the system right now will become exacerbated.
Oh yeah, because we don't already have the worst excesses of humanity currently on display for children to access. And to the people in either the YouTube section or even our very own website that were defending this on the grounds of your broken coon brains, I sympathise if you're addicted, but stop facilitating human trafficking just because you want to get off, please.
All right, and with that, so you can check that out. It's premium content, £5 a month on the website to access all of our premium content. Well worth it.
Better than going on OnlyFans.
Yes, absolutely it is. Anyway, let's get into it. So this story was broken by none other than our old friend Shoe on Head, who is, I think, still considered to be on the left, but is one of the very rare few people on the left who seems to have morality is something that she still cares about. I know that many on the left don't, but she still seems to, because she pointed out that the brand Balenciaga, who I believe are a fashion brand or a fashion house that are originating in Spain or Italy or something.
Spain, and they operate out of France. That's why they do the Paris fashion shows.
Yes, so Connor is obviously far more up to date with the fashion industry than I am.
Ooh la la.
And they did a very interesting photo shoot for their new products, which included a very purposefully hidden court document about virtual child porn. Now, if we just click on the image so we can see this, so this is a child holding the aforementioned Bondage bear, which I think is supposed to be some kind of fashion design accessory bag. I don't think it's actually a teddy bear, but it's supposed to be a bag. Either way, why dress it up in bondage? And if you are going to dress it up in bondage so that you can be edgy like that, because it's completely out of the normal for people in the mainstream to be edgy and sexualized, why hand it to a child? There is only one reason that I can think of. It's because you are...
Tap the sign.
Yes, you are just evil and want to diddle kids, as Oren McIntyre would consistently say. But one of the interesting things that I noticed about this was the discussion that people were having. Yeah, here's some more images. There are some more disturbing images as well, including... that aren't included in these particular images, but there was one of a woman with bruises painted onto her face.
So Amber Heard finally got a job after the trial.
Possibly. Holding one of these bears, and I can only describe it as looking like domestic abuse chic. Not a good look for Balenciaga either way. I don't understand the admiration that these people have for just complete degeneracy and the promotion that they have of degeneracy and degenerate lifestyles. I understand the correlation between bruises and bondage gear, but still, is that the sort of thing that we want big fashion brands to be advertising?
Or even giving it to children. Again, it just looks like Build-A-Bears started operating out of Ann Summers, and in isolation, those two stores are fine to exist, but not together. You weird, creepy pedos.
Yes, it's very disturbing, but a lot of attention was also drawn to the court documents that were in the photographs, so we can see a little bit there. It's a little bit fuzzy, but people like Chernovich here has found Cernovich, whatever.
You butchered his last name.
I don't know how you pronounce that name, but he said it looks like the case mentioned in the slip opinion is Ashcroft versus Free Speech Coalition, although the full case name is obscured by the paper. In context, that citation would make sense. So I've decided to do a little bit of digging into this, what exactly that case was and why it might be referenced in here. And honestly, it's all very strange and a little bit esoteric. So if you go to the next link, so here's a Britannica rundown of the Ashcroft v Free Speech Coalition case and what it was talking about. So Ashcroft v Free Speech Coalition, case in which on April 16th, 2002, the US Supreme Court upheld a lower court's decision that provisions of the Child Pornography Prevention Act, CPPA, of 1996 were vague and overly broad and thus violated the free speech protection contained in the First Amendment. The act specifically prescribed computer-generated or altered depictions of minors engaged in explicit sexual sexual conduct, so-called virtual child pornography, and images of explicit sexual conduct by adults who resemble minors.
So this is a pro-lolly bill. Lolly bill.
It seems that way. The court ruled that
right.
the law's expanded definition of child pornography is including any image that appears to be of a minor engaged in sexual explicit conduct or that is presented in such a manner of a minor that conveys the impression, is that would be criminalised images that are not technically obscene and images that were not produced with any real children.
So I drew it so it's okay.
Yes, it is the defending of lolly porn position.
Right, so it's the Vorsh position.
It is the Vorsh position. Well, it's not exactly the Vorsh position because Vorsh would argue that...
There's no horses involved? Yeah.
Vorsh would argue that actual child pornography is fine because whoever is using it did not produce it themselves. That's generally his argument on behalf of it. It's very disturbing. But so this decision seems to be something that permits the use, the creation of fetish porn, where it looks like where you can get really young-looking actresses. So it basically caters to the paedophile demographic because there is a paedophile demographic in pornography, as I'm sure that you've looked into.
That came off really weird, Harry.
Not like that.
No, I was about to use the example from Louise Perry's case against the sexual revolution where there was that 18, 19-year-old girl who dressed up in a schoolgirl's outfit, did porn for years because she looked very young, and then tried to live stream her suicide on YouTube because, of course, she's internalising her own lifelong child abuse by recreating the abuse for profit. So it's kind of gross that there's an entire contingent of guys out there that are not only indifferent to whether or not the porn is made consensually to get off with, because you never actually know that, what you're viewing, but also are happy to simulate children having sex to circumvent harming them in the real world, because they think, oh, there's no harm from that. It's not like I'm doing something really evil and depraved and debased to myself.
It's very disturbing. But this all brings to the question to my mind is, okay, why exactly in these very strange photo shoots was attention drawn to this case in particular? Was the Balenciaga photo shoot an incredibly clumsy way to kind of protest against it as like an art piece, like I can do this because this law is in place? Or was it mocking people in the same way, saying, look, I can do this because this law is in place and you can't do anything about it? It's very confusing to me as to why exactly do it, because it's either a very clumsy protest or a shockingly explicit mockery.
See, I read it kind of like that. It's either bragging that you can sexualise children in public because that's the current culture, or it is some clever intern printed that out and hid it in plain sight to get this obviously disgusting campaign taken down.
Well, I don't think it was an intern because those photographs were ones commissioned by Balenciaga from a specific photographer.
And they would have vetted it.
Yes, and they would have vetted it. It would have had to go through some red tape before they could approve all of it.
Yeah.
So it's either shocking that they didn't recognise this or did recognise it and thought to themselves, fine, that's all right, whatever.
So it's more likely that they're endorsing the Gail Rubin position.
Seems that way. But a bit more on this particular case. So the Free Speech Coalition, the ones that put the suit forward, were a trade association of the adult entertainment industry.
Yeah, I know that.
Surprise, surprise.
I covered that in the contemplations.
Yes, they filed suit in federal district court, which found for the government. Writing for the majority, Justice Anthony M. Kennedy argued that the CPPA would prohibit speech that is clearly not obscene by the definition established in Miller v. California 1973, viz. That a work is obscene if taken as a whole, it appeals to prurient sexual interest, is patently offensive by community standards, and is devoid of literary, artistic, political, or scientific value.
What a load of waffle.
All of these very vague things you could argue for anything to have literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. You could literally argue that case for anything. He also rejected the government's analogy with Ferber v. New York, in which the court found that even speech that was not obscene could be banned in order to protect children from being sexually exploited in its production. Unlike the real child pornography prescribed in Ferber, the virtual child pornography banned by the CPPA records no crime and creates no victims by its production.
Okay.
This is a bloody awful decision that was made. While the government asserts that the images can lead to actual instances of child abuse, the causal link is contingent and indirect.
Nope, ends there. Absolutely
Yep,
ends there.
The harm does not necessarily follow from the speech, but depends upon some unquantified potential for subsequent criminal acts. Moreover, the mere tendency of speech to encourage unlawful acts is not sufficient reason for banning it. This is an awful decision because I don't care. This is what happens when you try and base everything purely off the idea of first principles.
No. Opposite. It's what happens when you try and mitigate harm. Where's the harm? You're not talking about virtue. You're not talking about whether or not the act is bad in and of itself.
You are talking about the mitigation of harm through the application of first principles. When I'm sorry, reality and experience can say, okay, for anything involving a sexual depiction of a child, we can make an exception because my first principle is protect children.
Yeah, no, but okay, I think you've confused your own language there, because when they haven't based it on first principles is why this decision has come up, right? If your first principle is protect children, this would not be a decision you would not make exceptions. In the same way that Shoe on Head being the one leftist that values sanctity in the sort of Jonathan Haidt way,
yes.
If sanctity is a first principle, you will object to this photo shoot. Whereas if you are a leftist, you're just scaremonger about its knock-on societal impacts of stigmatising queer people, or whatever I'm sure is going to be in the following tweets.
Yeah, well, my question would be, is this the sort of case that means that Netflix can produce a show like Big Mouth, for instance?
Or Cuties?
Well, Cuties was more controversial because it actually has children in it that you can make a feasible argument for being exploited.
Yeah, but it's saying that it might be of cultural value because it's critiquing child exploitation.
It can definitely allow that, but something like Big Mouth, which was a Netflix show which I haven't watched but have sadly seen clips from, where they actually depict cartoon versions of like prepubescent children's genitals when they're about to hit puberty, when they're discovering their sexuality. The whole thing was masked under a cloak of we're just showing you what you went through when you were a teenager and you were discovering the side of yourself. Right. And it's just a very convenient way that we get to draw a 13-year-old girl's vagina as a cartoon. And lots of people at the time said that this is very noncy. I looked at it and went, this is incredibly noncy. And Netflix produced, like 5 series of it? So is that the thing? It doesn't count as child porn because it's a cartoon? Okay, all right, fair play. But there was a dissent. Yep. Chief Justice William Rehnquist dissented from the majority and was joined by Justice Anthony Scalia. Sorry, I'm just not pronouncing people's names right today. And he argued that the majority had construed the CPPA too broadly and that it was not the intention of Congress that the law should be used to prohibit speech of genuine merit, such as that of the modern film portraying the teenage lovers in Romeo and Juliet. We should be loath to construe a statute as banning film portrayals of Shakespearean tragedies without some indication from text or legislative history that such a result was intended. In fact, Congress explicitly instructed that such a reading of the CPPA would be wholly unwarranted. So they've basically made this broad exception for a massive contingency of things like Big Mouth, purely on the basis of something that Congress already said shouldn't be applied, because we're not doing this law to ban Romeo and Juliet or anything like that. It's like the what's the legal threshold for pornography? I think is incredibly vague, because it's like I can't say it for certain, but I'll know it when I see it.
Yeah,
and I think that's a pretty safe standard that a lot of us can recognise when it comes to things like that.
I also said on the banning porn thing, sex isn't speech. It's a literal action.
Well, that's also true. But also, the actual case that was listed on the document that people found in the picture was United States v. Williams, which, once again, is a very interesting case. The language in this article is quite difficult, so I did find a video, and I'm going to try and summarise it here. If I've got any of the details wrong for our American viewers, please feel free to correct me down in the comments below. So the rundown of the case was that Williams was the defendant. He got caught in an online forum advertising the distribution of child pornography and actually posted pictures of people that he claimed was his daughter. He was actually talking to a Secret Service agent who arrested him and charged him on 1 count of possession and on 1 count of pandering child pornography, pandering being basically advertising it, for which he was given 60 months, 5 years, which is far too short an opinion.
Why aren't these people can't actually say that on YouTube, can I?
He disputed the pandering count, and it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, who decided that the parameters for pandering were fine and upheld the initial 60-month sentence. So, once again, why this was necessary to try and hide barely in a photo shoot because people found it like that is very, very strange. And once again, was drawing attention to this intentional? Was it an accident? I can't say for certain, but either way, it has brought attention to these cases anyway. I do understand that after what's the name of it again? Sorry, Ashcroft v. Free Speech Coalition. I believe that the Congress drew up some more laws to try and be a bit more specific with certain definitions, but I don't know why exactly they're bringing attention to this, other than to potentially rub it in people's faces that child sexualization is something that you don't have to really worry about anymore. Except you do, because Balenciaga had a massive pushback as a result of this, because of Shoe on Head's blowing up this story, and they immediately deleted everything off of their Instagram. Supposedly this is something that they do at the end of every campaign to make room for the next campaign, but still, convenient timing. What were you about to say, sorry?
I was going to say, can we just draft via Congress, especially now the Republicans have hold of it, the death penalty for all convicted paedophiles bill, and just put this issue to bed?
Yeah, I would support that. And then, as you would expect, because Shoe on Head is a rather controversial figure among the left because she says, hey, let's not groom children, the left all decided to show up on Twitter and gaslight Shoe, because that's something that they do. Why she ever associated with any of these degenerates in the first place, I don't understand. So we've got Galaxy Brain legend The Surfs here saying, for the record, I unfollowed Shoe on Head when she made that tweet insinuating that children were getting lap dances at a drag event that she herself deleted and apologised for. Yes, because all of you gaslit her into thinking that, well, not even into thinking that this was normal. Basically, you emotionally blackmailed her into saying, oh, you're an evil person if you keep this post up. And she was like, fine, all right, whatever, I'll take it down.
The post literally is there where there are neon signs for our audio listeners that say it's not going to lick itself while children are around drag acts.
Children are being led by the hand with drag acts and also strippers who are completely topless. I don't think Shoe was insinuating that they were getting actual lap dances, although that particular image, go back, John, just to the first image, that particular one on the bottom left there looks an awful lot like children
preparing to get a lap dance.
So you can try and gaslight Mr. Surfs, if that is your real name, but I think the images speak for themselves, and you can go along because he's just highlighting other times that Shoe on Head is
the notion that exposing kids to the
out.
Concept of adult sexuality is inherently predatory, harmful, or toxic is really odd on the face of it. Seems to obscure the actual structures of abuse and power that victimise kids are. So, right,
that's just an excuse, that's just cope.
Sorry, child abuse is a systemic structural problem, but if an individual nonces on a child, in reality, it's not an issue. Right, okay. Again, I can't say that on YouTube.
Yep, and Shu replied to that with, I'm dying on the hill that children should not be anywhere near adult-themed shit. Apologies, I wasn't intending to swear there, but it just...
the fact that we've gotten through this segment without swearing is pretty impressive.
Out. But yes, Shu putting forward the sane position that nobody would have questioned 10 years ago against a man called Big Joel, who I have seen images of, who does not look particularly big, smart, or clever, who is saying that apparently not wanting kids to be sexualized is an odd thing. All right, fair play.
Your hard drive needs checking.
Yes, and then we had, hilariously, this is the second day in a row that such a thing has happened. I found a tweet that I thought was relevant and interesting for this that has been taken down because it was the account was suspended. Actually, first, there was Xander Hall, another leftist Twitch streamer, who said, Shoe on Head on her way to once again use her massive platform to provide the neo-Nazis in her audience with the fodder they can use to justify the murder of gay people, but this time the day after an anti-gay terror attack.
Number one, the supposed anti-gay terror attack. Not to spoil tomorrow's segment, but they were non-binary. Yes. Oh dear, what a shame. Number two, you've capitalised anti and gay, so we're going to start capitalising sexualities now they're a nation unto themselves, much like black and brown. Third, don't associate a leftist with Patrick Bateman because you're going to try and make her look cool.
Also, once again, just saying that if you don't like children being sexualised makes you a neo-Nazi. That's a way to make the neo-Nazi label a lot more popular than it should be.
Yeah, and also, just the thing of use a massive platform to stop talking about sexualising of children immediately jumps to, and this is offensive to gay people.
Always interesting how that
Major
happens.
self-report.
Like I mentioned, Hunter Avalon, whose tweet I can't access properly because his account got suspended between yesterday and today.
And nothing of value was lost.
Nothing of value was lost, but I did save the text. I
cuckold.
copied it down, and this is hilarious because it's Hunter Big Brain Centrist Avalon calling someone else brainless, saying more people are turning against Shoe on Head. Good, I don't disagree with everything she's ever said, and I do think some criticisms of her are silly, but she's an overall POS. She's too brain dead to engage in good faith, and she's purposefully mindless as a brand.
That's hilarious, you ballless, spineless, despicable worm, because I remember when you went on Timcast and you didn't even know that Joe Biden said the fire the prosecutor thing, and you got shown out to be an utter fraud. You just flip-flop for power and fame. You are disgusting, pathetic, and your opinions facilitate the abuse of children. I'm glad your tweet's banned. I hope I never hear from you again.
Yeah. Well put, thank you. And then just the last one, this was just from some random person saying that Shu isn't going to be pulled over or reined in. The longer people on the left associate with her, the more they cover they give for her anti-queer moral panic behaviour.
Moral panic.
Cut her off. So, just to get this clear, right? So Shu calls out a fashion company for having a really weird pedo bait advertising campaign, and then the left says that this is anti-queer and trips up over itself to disavow her.
I'm in this image and I don't like it.
Yes, they also keep gaslighting her by saying that she's lying and using emotional manipulation when they're the ones using emotional manipulation to make her feel bad for making her friends feel bad. Very strange. Very strange behaviour. Happily, she has just responded and saying that I ain't going to stop. Good, that's all right then. And going back to the origins of all of this, I think that was all just very a good demonstration of where the left's moral virtues are currently in the current paradigm. Balenciaga has issued an apology for their controversial Holiday 2022 campaign featuring children.
Holiday? So it's meant to be for Christmas?
Yeah. Either that or some Halloween thing, I don't know. So the teddy bears were featured, blah, blah, in October, and as I mentioned, along with models wearing makeup depicting bruising, so that was the domestic abuse chic that I was talking about. The house took to Instagram stories to issue an official apology, because that's where we do things now, on Instagram stories.
Which can disappear after 24 hours, and so it memory holes your accountability.
Well, articles like this make sure that we don't. We sincerely apologise for any offence our holiday campaign may have caused. Our plush bear bags should not have been featured with children in this campaign. We have immediately removed the campaign from all platforms. We apologise for displaying unsettling documents in our campaign. We take this matter very seriously and are taking legal action against the parties responsible for creating the set and including unapproved items for our Spring 23 campaign photoshoot. You are the ones who were supposed to be approving all of this stuff, Balenciaga. So either you're lying, which I think is the much more likely option, or you are hilariously incompetent at what you should be doing.
Not even hilariously, dangerously. You've got to say that every single marketing department is staffed by Stevie Wonder because it was passed through the social media team, the people that did the lighting, the colour correction, the touch-ups, the editing, that did the captions, and not one person spotted what everyone immediately did when we were looking at it on social media and went, oh wait, hang on a minute, that's nonce defending. Are you really expecting us to believe that? Like the Alec Baldwin story is more believable than this shit.
Yeah, not good enough. That's what I can say. And if you're wondering about who took the photos, who the photographer was, this person, Landon Starbuck, drew my attention to it, although I know there's been some other reporting on it. The award-winning photographer was a man called Gabriel Galimba, who shot the photos of children.
Right.
She reminds him that BDSM paraphernalia and children does not actually equal art. Why he needs to be reminded of this, I'm shocked. Only paedophiles would enjoy photos like these.
Yep.
Leave children out of sexual themes and sexual expressions. And then other people pointed out that this was another similar photo shoot from the same man, saying, "Good morning, friends. I spent the night playing with my friend's wonderful children." And after you know about the Bondage bear photo shoots, that takes on a very dark aura, doesn't it? And it is a shame, because I looked through some of this guy's other photos on his Twitter feed. A lot of them were pretty good.
Right.
He did an anti-guns campaign called Ameriguns, where he accidentally made all of these people lining up all of their guns look really awesome.
Yep.
But no, this is not defensible, and all of this together is pretty sus, bro.
Yeah, I feel uncomfortable having these up on screen, actually, John.
Pretty sus. Let's move to the next link. Let's move to the next link, because just to top this off with a white pill, in other news that will get the left frothing at the mouth with rage, Elon is looking to tackle child pornography that has been distributed on Twitter for a good few years now. And we know that this has been a problem for a long time, because even just a few months ago, before Elon took out, brands were blasting Twitter for ads next to child pornography accounts. So they said in here that Twitter permits adult content generally, is home to a thriving exchange of pornographic imagery, which comprises about 13%.
Yeah.
Imagine, you know how much content there is on Twitter. Imagine how much that all is when 13% of all content on Twitter is porn.
Yep. Again, argument I made in my contemplations is, wouldn't it be a wonderful world where we could just ban all the thoughts that have a viral tweet and immediately post their OnlyFans photos underneath?
Well, that's the thing, because it's content any child can stumble upon,
Yep.
which is why children should not be allowed online.
I call it sexual fentanyl. It's actually worse, because at least with drugs, you have to go to some sketchy dude to buy it. With a kid, you can just open your phone and go off the parental lock.
Yeah. So Reuters here points out that Ghost Data, a company, identified that more than 500 accounts were openly sharing or requesting child sexual abuse material over simply a 20-day period. Twitter failed to remove more than 70% of those counts during that study period, according to the group. And Twitter's transparency reports on its website show that it suspended more than 1 million accounts last year due to child sexual exploitation. But still, not very quickly, and only 70% in any given period, according to that little study that Ghost Data did right there. So even 1 million accounts is not enough, and it wasn't slowing down. So Elon, one of the first things that he's done, remember, all the leftists can whine about free speech, all they can say all that they want about how evil Elon is for being a billionaire. He's come in and said that that's his number one priority. First thing is getting rid of child porn and dealing with that problem on the website. So if you want to call him out for anything, remember, you weren't complaining when Jack Dorsey was just letting this happen. Or Parag Agrawal. So a minor, here's a story about it, sued Twitter, saying that the company had refused to remove a sexually explicit video of him at the age of 13, originally posted in 2019. So this was the before times. The minor had reported the video, but it took 9 days for the company to remove it from its platform, and this was only after an agent from the US Department of Homeland Security had intervened. A Twitter user, Eva Fox U, followed by Musk, and this is after now, tweeted, Elon Musk has begun addressing the issue of posting child sexual exploitation content on Twitter after years of the platform's inactivity on the subject under past management, with a link to an article by Tasmanian interviewing Eliza Blue, I assume is how you pronounce it, a survivor of human trafficking and an advocate for victims, someone I follow on Twitter. She posts a lot of content about how you can help support efforts to prevent human trafficking and child sexual exploitation. Well worth a follow. She's very good on all of this stuff. Musk responded to that tweet saying that the issue is priority number one, and Blue had told Tasmanian that the new management of the company takes the problem very seriously, emphasizing that the three main hashtags used to sell child sexual abuse content on Twitter have been cleared since Musk's takeover. Twitter had removed most of the content using these hashtags. There were still some tweets requesting it, but she said that it also added a direct reporting option for child sexual exploitation in tweets with images or videos. When reporting a tweet, users can now select the option of child sexual exploitation as the reason for the report. And happily, Eliza is very pleased about this, and she was pointing out how things can change so quickly. So this was just October last month. A headline from October, how suddenly things can change. Just scroll down. So it was a low priority for Twitter in the Department of Justice last month, and now it's priority number one. So criticize Elon all you want, but at least he is trying to make some improvements there. Eliza has done a lot to bring awareness to these issues as well. So once again, give her a follow. Boycott Balenciaga, because they obviously don't care about any of this and are more than happy to lie and then squeak out some pathetic apologies when called out for their degeneracy.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the premium videos we do, this one on the politics and psychology of Nightcrawler. If you'd like to find out what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.